From what happened in court yesterday, it seems that Tinubu's counsel muddled the waters and to some extent tried to misinterpret the constitution. Let's see the section of the 1999 constitution that talks about the different grounds for disqualification of a presidential candidate, and specifically the one that talks about the 10-year statute of limitation. You can see it clearly applies only to the offenses that can be classed as dishonesty. And when a person was convicted by Code of Conduct Bureau, it says, within a period of less than 10 years before the date of the election to the office of president, he has been convicted and sentenced for an offense involving dishonesty or has been found guilty of the contravention of the Code of Conduct. So you can see the reason all the subsections are separated by the use of the word or, so they can't be lumped together. The Constitution sees these offenses covered under this subsection as minor offenses that should not prevent someone from contesting for elective positions after 10 years it happened. You can see this difference in subsection 1D, where it mentions fraud and no longer code of conduct. This is because fraud can't be classed as misdemeanor because it's a serious offense. It goes on to add, by whatever name called or for any other offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal or substituted by a competent authority for any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal. And it goes on, as you can see, this addition is a blanket cover to cover all serious offenses. So any serious offense that a judge deems to fall under this section, the person must be disqualified. Obviously, they've categorized what you can call misdemeanor on one side, and on the other side, grave offenses have been categorized. And under subsection 1D, you can see that there's no provision for 10 years or 20 years, like in subsection 1E. Even if the statute of limitation should apply to all offenses, anything related to money laundering and narcotics should never be acceptable from persons aspiring to lead others, whether it's local government chairman, governor, or president. When politicians steal public money, the next step to legitimize the stolen money is to launder it. So you can imagine what will happen when a known money launderer who opened several accounts to launder money from narcotics proceeds occupies an elective executive position. He will simply help himself using his experience. Going by what Honorable Justice Samani said yesterday in court, it has become clear that they will not disqualify Tinubu based on narcotics proceeds worth $460,000 he forfeited to the US government because it has passed 10 years. That judgment against him was in 1993. That's 30 years ago. Yes, his statement was intentional, and if that will be the verdict on that particular disqualification ground, it poses a serious problem because when candidates present themselves for elective positions, it is left for the citizens to make research on them. Like this past presidential election, we had 4 major candidates. Most of the candidates engaged the citizens in debates and TV interviews just to project themselves and market themselves in front of the electorate. Apart from that, citizens still dug into the past of all the candidates to know them better, to know what they are capable of doing, to know if their thoughts and aspirations align with their own. Because when someone wants to lead you, you have the right to know the past and predict the character of the person. Even if the person actively tried to hide his past, you still have the right to use the internet or other media to get information about the person. So now you can now say, oh, I've known this man, he did this, he did that. With all that information, you can now say, yes, this is the man I want to vote for. This is the man I think will lead Nigeria to greater heights. So in essence, what it means is that it is the citizens that disqualify candidates at the polls. If a candidate fails to win the highest votes in an election, that means the people didn't vote for him. The people voted for another candidate. So ultimately, it is the people that disqualifies a candidate at the polls. Whether a political party turns a blind eye and says, no, this man didn't do this, he didn't do that, and still presents him as their flag bearer, the ultimate power to disqualify that person lies with the people when they go to the polls. Now, this poses a second question. What about when a candidate is disqualified by the people at the polls and INEC ends up rigging the election in the person's favor. What happens in this situation? The candidate or the candidates the people voted for will go to court to reclaim their mandate. So that means we are back to square one. Going by the INEC allocated votes, it's obvious that Tinubu didn't score the majority of votes, unlike in past presidential elections where the winner always had the highest votes, majority of the people voted for the person. Also, when you add the more than 8 million votes that INEC suppressed in order to push him to first position, his winning percentage becomes even lower. It gets worse when you calculate the fact that these votes allocated to him are not lawful votes. So it's clear that he doesn't have the mandate of Nigerians to lead. So how can the people who disqualified a candidate at the polls get justice from the courts? Yes, despite what the Honorable Justice said, it is just one ground out of many that Tinubu is facing for disqualification. If the person forged a certificate, is there in black and white, just like the 10 years? Or are they going to free him based on technicality? It is obvious that he forged this certificate. Never mind the fact that his lawyer is saying that there is no oral testimony from the university that proves that he forged it. But the proof is there. He submitted this certificate, no one submitted it for him. And it's quite different from the one that came from the university themselves. So the proof is there. They should not free him based on technicality. That would be sending the wrong signal. That means someone can forge a certificate tomorrow and maybe go at the back and tell the university not to come and testify that it didn't come from them, and he will win in court. Now, going by their strict interpretation of the Constitution, it means that nothing will prevent Tinubu from being disqualified because he failed to appoint a new vice presidential candidate 14 days after the first one withdrew, which is in violation of the Electoral Act and the 1999 Constitution. This one is not in contention. Even his lead lawyer agreed in one of their replies that he indeed failed to appoint Shetima before the expiration of the 14 days. And it is a constitutional breach. And it is now beyond the Allied People's Movement. They can't even withdraw it. Yes, they brought the evidence before the court, so the court must hear the matter and make a decision. It's just like the police and the public prosecutor charging someone for a crime and bringing all the evidence before the court, and the court have seen the grievous crime committed by the person. They now apply to withdraw the case. No, it doesn't work that way. They must give reason that will satisfy the court before they can allow them. In fact, in some circumstances, the court will never allow them to withdraw such a matter because it has become open. They are now aware that the person committed the crime and they must do their job as justices of the court. They will not allow a crime that was committed against the people or the constitution go unpunished. Going by the no-nonsense and strict way Honorable Justice Samani interpreted the Constitution, Tinubu must be disqualified because of his invalid candidacy. APC didn't have a candidate in the past presidential election. Apart from the disqualification hammer that will definitely fall on Tinubu's candidacy, the court must still decide who won the election. Going by the evidence before them, the petitioners proved that INEC suppressed votes to the tune of more than 8 million votes in order to push Tinubu to the first position. To prove this, they submitted INEC CTCs from many states. They also submitted their party agent copies that covers more than 10,000 polling units under the 18,000 blood results. In these polling units, they won massively. That's why INEC suppressed the votes in the first place. Because if those votes are counted and added, Labour Party will not be in the position where INEC put them in their allocation. They also submitted Beaver's report in many states where overvoting occurred. Yes, Labour Party, PDP, APC, all the parties will lose votes when results in places where overvoting occurred are cancelled. Yes, the fact that Labour Party submitted this evidence proves they won the election. If they were not sure they won the election, why would they submit Beaver's reports that proves overvoting when they know they will lose votes when these results are cancelled? It is to show you that they know that truly they won the election despite all the cancellations that will happen in overvoting areas, that they still came out tops. So it is the duty of the court to look at all the evidence, going by the promise made by the presiding judge during the pre-hearing that they will look at every matter based on their merit, not based on technicality. It is hoped that they will do the right thing despite what happened in court yesterday. It is interesting to know that the Honorable Justices understand the interest of Nigerians in this petition. A huge burden rests on their shoulders to resolve this election, to bring this presidential election to an end by looking at the evidence before them to determine the winner. How the respondents defended themselves in court wasn't a surprise. It all started before the campaigns. All the other candidates were going to campaigns, speaking to people, trying to convince them. They also went to debate each other. Only Tinubu dodged all debates. He never faced any opposing candidate in a single debate during the campaigns. Even interviews, the only major interview he granted was to BBC. And guess what? The same BBC he trusted and gave an interview later compiled results from Rivers State. And you know who won? Labour Party and Peter Obi won Rivers State. What did INEC announce? They announced Tinubu and APC as the winner. This evidence is before the court, also of Benue State. INEC announced APC as the winner of Benue State, despite their own results, both on IREV and hard copies showing that Peter Obi and Labour Party won. So these are many instances. We are not even talking about Lagos or the other places. So it's obvious that INEC suppressed the votes of the Labour Party and pushed the other candidate to the first position. So in a nutshell, you can understand that the rigging of this election was planned well ahead of time. They knew that they can never win a free and fair election in Nigeria because the same party under Buhari administration mismanaged the Nigerian economy. Look at the price of goods. That's why they didn't bother to campaign. In some campaigns that Tinubu attended, he said he wanted to dance, just dance. The opposition capitalized on the mess they created. Look at the insecurity challenges that are still going on till today. On top of the hard times that Nigerians are experiencing, they still remove the fuel subsidy without warning. This is a party that have been in power since 8 years. They failed to build one single refinery to refine our crude oil so that they can buy the crude oil in Naira. The high cost of petrol is unjustifiable in Nigeria of today. What were they doing all along? They couldn't repair one single refinery out of the 4 we have. No single solution to anything, and they think they can win a free and fair election. They didn't think it, they knew. That was why they planned ahead to rig the election. Remember how the same party opposed the use of technology in the conduct of the election. Eventually, the Buhari administration forced it to pass. At the end of the day, INEC failed to use the same technology to conduct the election. So it was pre-planned right from day one. Block the upload of presidential election results, write the results by the side, move on without opposition, despite the shouts by oppositions, just announce the results, we'll go to court and find excuses. If we can buy INEC officials and security agents, all that, why won't we do the same thing to the judiciary and get the results that we need? Without prejudice, there's still hope that the Honorable Justices will do the right thing. They will do justice to the petition. Not just them, but also at the Supreme Court, going with all the evidence and the judicial precedents by the same Supreme Court. They cannot abandon all this just to favor one man. They should think about the consequences of their actions. The whole country, not just the petitioners, are looking up to them to do justice to the petition. People who aspire to lead should not come through the back door. The election was a test of popularity, and it's obvious who is the least popular. How can that person end up being the winner of the election? Thanks for watching.